Welcome to Flippin' Bats, my friends, where the Major League Baseball season is down to the final four teams. We have the ALCS and we have the NLCS. It is currently Monday as I'm recording, meaning Game 1 of the ALCS is in the books. We're going to talk about that and that matchup, and we're going to preview the NLCS, which starts later today at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The NLCS between the Dodgers and Brewers will kick off. So a lot to talk about here today. We're going to preview that series. We'll talk about Game 1 that happened. There's a lot of breaking news happening. On Monday morning, it came out that the Padres manager, Mike Shildt, is retiring. Kind of bombshell news, really. Kind of came out of nowhere. Mike Shildt has been with the Padres for 2 years. Mostly I don't know if I can even say successful. I think with a roster like that, the expectation is a World Series. But I felt like Mike Shildt was a good manager. This is shocking news, I think, to a lot of people. From everything out so far, he is retiring. This was not like hey, we'll give you the opportunity to get ahead of it, or we want you out the door. This is him retiring. He's out after 2 years. He said he thought about it a lot during the baseball season this year, and he put out a long statement. But he also said that the baseball season takes a really tough toll on him. Physically, emotionally, and mentally, it's taken a big toll on him, and he's decided to prioritize himself and his life, and he's stepping away. Bombshell news, that's a big job opening. There's a couple big jobs. Well, there's 8 current managerial openings around Major League Baseball, and there's some really big ones. Padres is obviously a huge one. The Braves is a very big one as well. I think the Orioles is an exciting one. Giants. But here's the 8 teams. You have the Rockies, the Giants, the Orioles, the Angels, the Nationals, the Braves, the Twins, and the Padres are the 8 teams with managerial openings after Mike Shildt has retired. So that's a big job. I'm excited to see who ends up taking over there. But big news Monday morning. Shocking news. He's been there for 2 years. The team's been competitive. He changed that. I really feel like he did a good job with that culture. It seems like a fun place to play. So some shocking news there. Sunday, we got Game 1 of the ALCS. That series is the Seattle Mariners against the Toronto Blue Jays after the 15-inning marathon with the Detroit Tigers Friday night. Detroit Tigers at Seattle Mariners. That game goes 15 innings, and the Seattle Mariners ended up pulling it out. I swear I was on pins and needles for, I don't know, really since once Scooble came out. It was like full pacing. So that started in the 7th inning. I feel like I paced for 3 hours. It was a wild game in the end. The Mariners pull it out. The Tigers couldn't hit. That was their problem in the playoffs. This is not going to be an I told you so, nor is it going to be much about the Tigers. But when it comes to the Tigers offense, I was calling it before the season started. I was calling it when they were the best team in baseball. I called it entering the playoffs. The team didn't have enough offense. So now, all of a sudden, you lose that series, and the conversation immediately becomes with the Detroit Tigers. What are they going to do with Tarik Skubal, who is not a free agent, but he is after next year? He's the best pitcher in the game of baseball. He was dominant in the postseason, made it very clear and obvious that he's the best pitcher in baseball. And he's going to be owed a lot of money when he hits free agency. So the conversation immediately with the Tigers became, what do you do with Tarik Skubal? Do you trade him? Do you extend him? How do you handle him? And I personally don't like the direction it's heading. It feels like there's a lot more trade talk out there. I know Scott Harris was asked about it after the season, and he said, I can't comment on our players being traded or players on different teams or free agency. Can't comment on that. All I will say here, because this doesn't need to be a Tigers conversation, is if the Detroit Tigers do not extend and sign Tarik Skubal long-term to be the face of the franchise and a Detroit Tiger for a long time, they have once again failed miserably as an organization. And that's all I got. Let's talk ALCS Game 1. Mariners at Blue Jays. This game was huge for many reasons, but for me, this was the game that the Blue Jays had the biggest advantage in of the entire series. And you can say the Blue Jays have the advantage in the series. They're the favorite. They're the 1 seed, and I get all that. But if there's one specific game where the Blue Jays had the biggest advantage, it's in Game 1. You know, like the Mariners just played in a 15-inning game 2 days prior. 15 inning, less than 48 hours prior. They played in a 15-inning game. And now you play in that, you travel to Canada across 2 time zones and have to play against a well-rested team. You had to go Bryce Miller because you used the rest of your starters. It felt like the biggest advantage for the Blue Jays that they would have the entire series, and to lose that game really feels like a statement game for the Seattle Mariners. You're coming off that 15-inning game where you used most every starter. Then you have to travel to Canada. Then the Jays have home field advantage with rest and their number 1 starter. This is your number 4, 5 starter if you consider that Brian Wu is back. This is your number 5 starter going against the Toronto Blue Jays' number 1 starter, and your team less than 48 hours ago was playing in a 15-inning marathon where every pitcher got used, and your MVP catcher caught 15 innings and his legs were dying from under him. And the Seattle Mariners won that game. Bryce Miller gave up a homer on the first pitch he threw. Quite the statement to start the ALCS. Right? Clean first inning for Kevin Gausman. Bryce Miller takes the mound. George Springer steps in. First pitch of the series with the Toronto Blue Jays on offense, and George Springer hits a no-doubt Oppo homer, 1-0, and it felt like, man, wow, this Blue Jays team is just continuing the tear that they have been on. And that wasn't the case. That was the one and only... That was the first hit of the game for the Blue Jays. And from that moment on, they only got 1 hit the entire rest of the game. First pitch, homer, ended the game with 2 hits and a loss. Game 1 goes to the Seattle Mariners. Look, when it comes to this series, I've said this a lot over the years, but this series is your like, it could not be a more poster child series for dominant pitching, dominant starting pitching against hot, really good offense, best offense in the postseason. Blue Jays are hitting .338 coming into the ALCS. No other team is even close. The Blue Jays team WRC plus is 168. And I know a lot of people listening might not be like, oh, WRC plus doesn't mean a lot to me. Let me just put it in a baseline for you. 100 is average. Okay? 100 is average. The Blue Jays' entire team offense has a WRC plus of 168 in the postseason. The next closest team is at 111. The Blue Jays' offense has been absolutely on fire. So this is really dominant pitching against really good offense that's hot. And look, when it comes time for playoffs, I tend to take the pitching side if there's any offense that can go with it, and I believe the Mariners added that. So Mariners go into Toronto in Game 1 with all the advantage going to the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays were watching that 15-inning game. Their social media team put out a hilarious tweet of watching a fight and like enjoying watching it. And like, I get it. It was funny, but then you come out and lose Game 1 and it feels like that game felt huge. So we will see. Game 2 is on Monday today. We will see if it was a little bit of, okay, we got up for Game 1, right? It hadn't caught up with them yet. The 15-inning marathon, 48 hours later, then you travel, and then it's, all right, strap it up for Game 1 of the ALCS. Does it hit them in Game 2 of the ALCS? We'll see. We'll see what happens. Logan Gilbert on the mound for the Mariners. Let me check the full pitching matchup here. Logan Gilbert against Trey Savage. So this will be interesting. Logan Gilbert pitched in that 15-inning marathon, went a couple innings over 30 pitches. There's a big difference between throwing your side session, which it was his side session day. He was going to throw a bullpen on Friday, but there's a big difference between doing that and throwing over 30 pitches in a marathon playoff winner-take-all game. He's going to be feeling different than ever. So I'll be interested in seeing that first inning. How does he come out of the gates? We'll take a look at that. But this series is dominant pitching against dominant hitting, with the Blue Jays having a big advantage after what the Mariners went through. And the Mariners come out in Game 1 and take it. Win 1 on the road is always the goal for the lower seeded team. The Mariners have already done that. Can they win both before the series heads back to Seattle? Where, again, look, when it comes, of the 4 teams remaining, there are 2 teams that have never won a World Series. And the Seattle Mariners, now 3 wins away from the World Series, have never once been in the history of the organization. The Seattle Mariners have never been, and they're 3 wins away. The Milwaukee Brewers have never won one. But this series has all great narratives with the Mariners never being there. The Blue Jays haven't been there since 1993. And then I get the Toronto Blue Jays are 2 time zones away, but Seattle's not all that far from Canada. And there are a lot of Blue Jays fans just north of the border, not far from Seattle. So there's always been this fun rivalry between these 2 teams. And I've already seen on social media Seattle Mariners fans saying, don't sell your tickets to Blue Jays fans. And we'll see. Often when they play in the regular season, there are a lot of Blue Jays fans in attendance. That Mariners crowd has been awesome, and we'll see the percentage of Blue Jays fans that are able to show up there. Mariners take Game 1 of the ALCS, and Game 2 will be Monday. It is the first game of the day. I believe 5 o'clock Eastern time. 5:03 Eastern time is the start time for that game. And then there's the NLCS. NLCS Game 1 starts tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern time. The Los Angeles Dodgers at the Milwaukee Brewers. And this series is fun because there's every narrative under the sun when it comes to this. Right? The Brewers are the 1 seed. The Dodgers are in as a wild card. So there's already this narrative of David versus Goliath. Right? And then I see people trying to flip the script and say, okay, well, David, in this instance, the Milwaukee Brewers, David won 4 more games out of 162, and they have home field advantage, and they swept all 6 games of the regular season. Let's pump the brakes here a little bit on trying to flip the script there. This series is David versus Goliath, and there's no world in which it's not. Okay, I get the Brewers had a better season. I get they're the 1 seed. I get they have home field advantage and that they swept the season series against the Los Angeles Dodgers. But I guarantee you the Dodgers are favored in this series. Let's actually go look at this. We're going to go look at who the favorite to win this series is. And I'm going to say it's the Los Angeles Dodgers, but we're going to try and figure out by how much. How much are the Dodgers favored in this series? Here it is. Okay. NLCS. Los Angeles Dodgers are minus 205 on FanDuel Sportsbook to win the NLCS. That is a large favorite. That is why this series is David versus Goliath. Look, I get it. The Brewers won every game against the Los Angeles Dodgers this year. Right? Brewers went 6-0. Well, Ohtani wasn't pitching. Snell was out. Mookie was in a career-worst slump, and the Dodgers were really going through it at the time. Does it matter at all that the Brewers swept in the regular season? I would say yes. But I see this narrative out there all the time of, oh, they swept. It's not a big deal. What is a big deal is that clearly they've seen their starting pitching. The Brewers have seen the Dodgers starters, a few of them, not who they're going to see in Game 1. Or probably Game 2 even for that matter. But they've seen the pitching. They've done well. They have success. There's a little bit of confidence built in there. But when it comes time to the regular season versus the postseason, scrap everything you know. This is the 7th season, the 7th series in MLB postseason history where the matchup is between 2 teams where one of them swept in the regular season. The 7th series in postseason history where one team swept the regular season series. And you know what's even more interesting about that is 4 of the previous 6 went to the team that got swept. Okay? So the regular season, when 162 is done, scrap it. Doesn't matter. I don't care that the Brewers went 6-0 against the Dodgers this year. There were a lot of reasons. One, they played in like a 2-week span when the Dodgers were really going through it. So this narrative that this is some sort of David Goliath, but let's switch it because David, the team that everyone's calling David, and the Milwaukee Brewers is actually 6-0 against the Dodgers this year, and the number 1 seed and home field advantage, spare me. The game 1 starter for the Los Angeles Dodgers is Blake Snell. His 2025 salary is higher than the entire Milwaukee Brewers pitching staff. Every single one of them. The Dodgers are first in Major League Baseball in payroll. The Brewers are 21st in payroll. $350 million compared to $116 million. Well over doubled. This is a David versus Goliath matchup. Now, I am not actually sitting here and saying that this series is easily the Dodgers and this is a cakewalk series. Coming into these playoffs, I would say I was a bit undervalued the Milwaukee Brewers. I wasn't high on them coming into the postseason. I didn't think their team was built great for October. I thought they were built more to win over 162. But what I do love about them, I love a lot of things about them. They do everything well. And I think they have maybe the best manager in baseball in Pat Murphy. But they do everything well. And I don't like the narrative with this Brewers team of small ball. Small ball. Just because the Milwaukee Brewers do everything right does not make them a small ball team. The Brewers didn't bunt much in the regular season, but they run the bases well. They have timely hitting. They can hit for some pop. Their starting pitching ERA is the best in the National League. Their pitching is dominant. They do everything well. That does not make them a small ball team. They just don't have the superstars that the Los Angeles Dodgers have. And that's where the big difference in payroll and all of that comes in. But what the Dodgers have is a lot. But when we're talking rotation, the Los Angeles Dodgers rotation at this point might be the best that we have ever seen at this point in a season. You're turning to an ace any game. The Los Angeles Dodgers are set up better to win in a 7-game series than they were in a 5-game series because, honestly, they have too much starting pitching, and their bullpen is their weakness. So now we're sitting here in a 7-game series, and no matter what game it is, you're going to be facing a number 1 starter. Blake Snell in game 1, right? And then you still have Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Tyler Glasnow. In the 5-game series, the conversation in that with the Phillies was, okay, just get to the Phillies bullpen. Well, they have so much starting pitching that in game 1, they turned to Tyler Glasnow out of the bullpen and then handed it to Roki Sasaki. So the rotation to this point in a year where we're sitting now with the depth they have might arguably be the greatest ever. And I have Smoltz on this show every week. We can have the discussion of I hear you and you're not wrong, but we're in the same realm with Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox. The depth the Dodgers have to me allows the conversation to happen. But going Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox, three Hall of Famers in a playoff series is pretty wild. But being able to have those bullpen concerns with the Dodgers and then turning to Tyler Glasnow out of the bullpen, it's crazy. So what I want to do for this series, since it starts today, is with this NLCS preview, is a little bit of each team's strength, each team's weakness, and each team will win the series if. And we're going to start with the strength. The Dodgers' strength is you can't not give them 2. Their starting rotation plus their 3 MVPs. Right? Being able to, at the top of the lineup, go Shohei, Mookie, Freddie, and then having the rotation that we just talked about is absolutely a strength. And, if you were to tell me that in the NLDS round, Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman would combine to go 4 for 33 with 15 strikeouts, I would say, wow, the Phillies advanced. As I predicted, Phillies World Series champions. They beat the Dodgers. They kept them at bay. Those starting pitchers of Christopher Sanchez and Ranger Suarez and Jesus Luzardo were too much for the lefties in the Dodgers lineup. And you know what? They were. Those 2 went 4 for 33 with 15 strikeouts. And here we are with the Dodgers still advancing to the NLCS. That is remarkable. So the Dodgers' strength is their starting rotation as a whole and their 3 MVPs at the top of the lineup. Brewers' strength is their pitching. Freddie Peralta's a stud. He's going to go in game 2. Jacob Mizorowski has been great. Back into the bullpen, Abner Uribe, McGill. Brewers pitching is best National League team ERA in all of baseball this year. Their weaknesses. The Dodgers' weakness is their bullpen. And it still is their bullpen. Roki Sasaki has changed everything for the Dodgers this postseason. Who saw that coming? A month ago, Roki Sasaki wasn't even up in the big leagues. The majority of the season, Roki Sasaki was, to a lot of people, this laughing stock of, oh my God, he came over, he was supposed to be this phenom, the Dodgers get him because of course, and then he wasn't very good, and then he was seen emotional in the dugout, and then he's been in the minor leagues ever since. People love to see the demise of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So people think it's funny when they get this guy that's supposed to be a prized possession, and it doesn't work out. Well, let's not forget how young he is, and maybe he just wasn't ready physically, emotionally, and then he comes back up at the end of the year. They pitch him out of the bullpen, and it's like, wait a second, this might be something. And then fast forward a week, and he's closing out a playoff series against the Cincinnati Reds. So then what you have is April, Roki Sasaki seen after a bad outing in the dugout, emotional, and then October, Roki Sasaki on the mound at Dodger Stadium, closing out the 9th inning of a playoff series, the final game of the series, with Dodger Stadium chanting his name on the mound. How's that for a turnaround? This has been an awesome, awesome turnaround, and what a year for Roki Sasaki to come up and be. I don't know if the Dodgers would be here right now. Against the Phillies in that final game, he went three innings, 9 up, 9 down, to just keep the line rolling, and the Dodgers obviously end up winning that game. So Dodgers' weakness is still their bullpen. But having Roki Sasaki there in the back end has really helped change everything. But you still got to get into that bullpen before it can get to Roki. The Brewers' weakness, I think, is inexperience in their rotation. I like Jacob Misiorowski a lot. He came up. We saw what he did over the course of really a few starts, and he was named to the All-Star team. And then in the second half, that stuff is still there. He's still throwing over 100, but he's struggled a little bit. And now in the postseason, he's been fantastic. Quinn Priester as well. Inexperience in the rotation is the Brewers' weakness. Now, the Dodgers will win this series if their stars continue to shine. And there's so many of them that you can have that you can have Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman go 4 for 33 with 15 strikeouts in a series, and you still beat maybe the best team in the playoffs. You can afford that because then Mookie Betts can go off or Teoscar Hernandez can go off. As long as the stars show up, and there's a lot for the Dodgers, but you need them to show up. And if they can, then they're going to be going back to the World Series. The Milwaukee Brewers will win if they get into the Dodgers bullpen before the 6th inning more often than not. The bullpen is still a Dodgers weakness. You just can't allow them to go Blake Snell for 7 innings to Roki Sasaki for 2. You can't allow that to happen. You have to knock them out. And I'm not saying this, you have to be up and winning. Just keep the ball game close and knock the starter out at some point in the 5th inning, and you're going to have a good chance to score off of somebody that they're going to bring in. Blake Treinen has not been good. So just get into that bullpen earlier in the game. And obviously, right, like that seems obvious, but the Dodgers' weakness is still their bullpen. For the Brewers to win this series, they do everything well, but get into the Dodgers' bullpen before the 6th inning more often than not, and the Brewers will win this series and advance to the World Series, where they will try and win the first World Series in franchise history. NLCS starts tonight. NLCS Game 1 is at 8:08 p.m. Eastern Time. The scheduled starters. As we speak, the Dodgers have named Blake Snell as the starter, who's 2-0 with a 1.38 ERA in the postseason. And the Brewers are still yet to name their starter. Pat Murphy named a lot of guys. A lot of guys have been named to potentially start this game. Starters, relievers, what have you. Freddie Peralta has... The only thing that we know is Freddie Peralta is going to pitch in Game 2 against the Dodgers. But we don't yet know Game 1. We just know Blake Snell against TBD. This series is going to be awesome. Can't wait to watch this. Can't wait to see Game 2 as well, how that shakes out in the ALCS. But a lot happening around baseball. We are down to the final 4. Some really good narratives here. David versus Goliath in the NLCS side of things. And no matter the record, no matter the seeding, no matter the home field advantage, don't let anybody fool you. This David-Goliath matchup is David the Milwaukee Brewers against Goliath the Los Angeles Dodgers, looking to be the first back-to-back champion in Major League Baseball since 2000-2001 New York Yankees. That's how long it has been since we've had a back-to-back champion. On the American League side of things, just the narrative with the Mariners never getting there, the Blue Jays not being there, and 30 years basically. 1993. It's 2000. That's 32 years. I mean, them being close in not them being close in proximity, but the Mariners being close to Canada. A lot of a lot of Mariners fans up right around the border. A lot of Blue Jays fans right across the border just because they are in Canada. I just love this Final Four matchup that we have, and I'm excited to see how they all play out. Last back-to-back MLB championship. Just making sure my years are correct. They put in back-to-back champion. Last MLB back-to-back champions. Who won the World Series 3 in a row from 1998 to 2000. They defeated the San Diego Padres in 98, Braves in 99, and Braves again in 2000. 2001, I believe, was actually the Diamondbacks that ended the run with the Luis Gonzalez and Tony Womack situation. So 99 and 2000, and throw in 98 was the last back-to-back, and it was the New York Yankees. So everybody loves to talk about this narrative with the Brewers and the Dodgers and how it's this massive payroll difference and how baseball and how everything needs to shape out. I don't pay much attention to that. Baseball is by far the sport with the longest run without a back-to-back champion. There is not a problem until there is one. And I don't think the Dodgers skirting their way along the playoffs this year and playing in a bunch of close series and winning these games, I don't think there's a problem yet. Now, if they continue to win and then win again next year, and then after that, like we could talk about it. But right now, there's not a problem until there is one. Longest sport without a back-to-back champion in all of professional sports, and it's by a long shot. So this is an awesome series. This series is fun for so many reasons. The Brewers do everything well. They pitch well. They hit well. They have good back into the bullpen, and they have maybe the best manager in the game of baseball. But they do not have the superstars and the firepower that the Los Angeles Dodgers have. Pat Murphy said that. He goes, I don't know how many guys on our roster would make that team over there, would make the Los Angeles Dodgers. But we'll take our guys. We'll take our guys every day. And that series starts tonight. NLCS Game 1 at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. ALCS, did I say? NLCS, 8 o'clock Eastern. ALCS Game 2 is at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, and that all starts here a little bit later today. Looking forward to it. Again, Mike Shildt out as Padres manager. That leaves 8 openings. 8 openings around Major League Baseball. That is 8, 16, 24. Over a quarter of the league is looking for a manager right now, and some really good jobs as well. So enjoy the Final Four. We'll have John Smoltz up here in a couple days to talk to him about everything happening around the game of baseball. I know I mentioned the live stream on Sunday on MLB's YouTube channel. I did do that. I tried to simulcast it, I guess, and do it on MLB and Flippin' Bats, but the connection got a little weird and shoddy, so I just cut it right away so I could make sure I focused on the MLB stream. So I'll try and fix that and do that again, but we'll have John Smoltz on a little bit later. We'll keep doing shows throughout the playoffs. I'm going to the World Series. The playoffs have been incredible. NLCS preview today, ALCS Game 1 recap, Mike Shildt out as manager. And the Tigers need to keep Tarek Skubal. Who are we kidding? Pay the man. That's what needs to happen. Thank you all for watching. As always, if you don't watch, make sure you do on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod. I love hopping in the comments there and talking to every single one of you and, kind of continuing the conversation from the episode. So please, if you're watching, like the video, leave a comment. I'll comment back, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. All of that does really help. Make sure you're following wherever you listen. If you listen on podcasts, check us out, Apple, Spotify, wherever. And on all social media, at Flippin' Bats Pod, everywhere is where we are on social media. So check that out. I appreciate you all. Flippin' Bats is presented by FanDuel. Bet baseball with us all season long on America's #1 sportsbook. Enjoy the LCS rounds, everyone. It's the Final Four. I'll be back in a couple days with John Smoltz to talk about all of this. But until then, enjoy baseball, and remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace. Flippin' Bats is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 and older and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and older and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.